Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of the Dental Marketing Secrets Podcast, where we share what's working right now in the wonderful world of dental marketing. I'm your host, Mark Thackeray, and today we are talking about one of the most overlooked, underused, and quite frankly, underappreciated opportunities in dental marketing. We're going to be focused on reactivating past patients. This is not a sexy topic by any means, but it is one that provides a lot of opportunity and I'll explain what I mean by that as we get into this episode. But if I were to look at your practice, if I were to venture a guess, I would estimate that you probably have dozens, possibly hundreds, maybe even thousands of patients, depending on how long you've been in practice, you've been in business, who haven't been in for months or maybe even years. There's that segment of your patient list that you just haven't seen for whatever reason for a very long time. And it tends to grow month after month, year after year. They've come in, you've treated them, they've smiled, they said thank you, and then poof, like magic, they are gone. And you just haven't seen them since. But here's the thing, these inactive patients are, one way to look at them they are your lowest cost leads. They are someone who's already crossed that bridge of trust, which is it's the hardest thing to do when you are trying to attract someone into your practice. You're trying to attract someone to pick up the phone and call. There's that gap of trust that we've talked about on the show before, and that is a hard thing to overcome. But these patients have already done that. They've already crossed that bridge. They already have a relationship with you. So really all that they need now is a compelling reason why. It could be a friendly nudge. We don't want it to be a guilt trip or anything, but it could be incentive, as we'll get into some of those. It's kind of the tactics that you can use to reactivate some of these patients. And it's really neat too to see, because along with them, you're going to see additional treatment. You're going to see additional referrals that come along for the ride when you're able to kind of resurrect these dead patients, these not dead patients, but inactive patients. That's probably a better way to say it. So in this episode, we're going to get into why you should treat your inactive patient list like buried treasure, because it is. We're going to go over a few simple reactivation strategies that actually work. We're going to even share a few tools, some scripts that you can use to make follow-up automatic, because that's also a sticking point for a lot of practices, is they not really sure what to say, or they just use the default messaging that come in their practice management software. And quite frankly, those don't work all that well. It needs some personalization and ideally some personality. And we'll talk about that as we get into it. And then at the end, I can have a downloadable checklist that makes this whole thing super easy to follow. So I will add that to the show notes. You can just click on it and download it and get going, because we want to make this as easy as possible for you. So grab a drink, a pen, a notebook, and let's dive right in. So first off, let's just kind of set the stage here. So on average, they estimate, there's a number of studies that estimate about 25% of patients in your practice are inactive. They're haven't been seen in 18 months, 24 months. And like I mentioned, that continues to increase over time, not only in terms of when they last saw you, obviously, as time goes by, but also the number of patients that are classified as inactive continues to grow. So that is a huge segment of your database. And when you're looking at that, it's important to remember all the time, the money, and the effort that you've already invested to get them into the practice. As we mentioned in the introduction, that is the hardest part when it comes to marketing. It's getting someone to pick up the phone, or ideally even come into the practice. If you can do that, more often than not, you are able to convert them as a patient. And you've done that with these. I mean, they came in, they had some treatment, but then they've just fallen off, right? And so this represents a huge, if this is true for your practice, 25% of your database falls into this category. And it gives you that opportunity now to look at them and see, how can I get these people back? And now I'm not going to be naive and think that you are able to get all of them back. That's not possible. There are some that have moved on, either geographically moved away from the practice, and that's no longer reasonable to come to back into the office, or they may have had weren't satisfied, they didn't have a great experience, and they're just looking for something different, and that's okay too. But there is the vast majority of those patients can be reconverted, I guess you could say. You can persuade them to come back in. And so if you look at that and you think, let's say if you have just for the sake of math, you have 1,000 patients in your database, on your list, that's 250 patients that fit that description. Now, like I said, there's going to be some that aren't going to come back. So even if it was still 150, 200 maybe, that's huge. That's a tremendous opportunity to get patients back in the door, to see them, to obviously serve them and make sure that they're getting the care that they deserve. But also they're likely going to have people they know that fall into that same situation, that they also need to be seen. They've avoided the dentist, or maybe it could be a family member. Just collectively as a family, they haven't been going. So that represents an additional opportunity for your practice to increase, just improve your scheduling as far as patients go. And again, really kind of maximize on those opportunities that you've already invested to acquire. So another interesting statistic that I came across, and I've seen this play out in different ways. So it's, the estimates vary a little bit, but as far as the cost to acquire a new patient, it's going to depend a lot on your type of practice. So if you're just looking for a general new patient, then you're going to see costs somewhere, from 75 upwards to $150 per new patient. And again, that depends on market, that depends on competition, it depends on a few other variables. But then when you get into, if you are fee for service or cosmetic type of patient, you're going to see that cost increase to upwards to $500 and more. So now if you look back at that database, right, and you're looking at 25% of those patients that fall into that inactive category, that's a significant amount of investment that you've already made financially to acquire those, to have them come into the door. Okay. We're not even talking about the effort and the time and all that you've also invested. This is just financial, but it does give you an idea of how important these people are, right? And the ability to reactivate any one of those is going to be so much nicer than trying to go out and acquire a new patient. Okay. So this is really the lowest of the low-hanging fruit, if I were to put it in those terms, because again, they've already built that, you've already established that trust. We're speaking, specifically with that segment that is likely to come back. Those ones that have moved on, that's fine. We're not really talking about those, but those that are likely to come back, you've already built that level of trust, and they just really just need a nudge. They just need a reason why to come back in. Okay. And then the last stat I'll share right now is these reactivation campaigns often will deliver 20% higher success rates than any type of new patient outreach out there. So it's again, very, very effective. This is one of the first things that you should be doing when you're looking at how can I revamp or improve my marketing? How can I improve patient flow? You want to look at those people that you've already established that trust with, and how can I get them to come back in? Okay, so let's talk a little bit now on why patients go dark. Why on earth are they leaving? Why it really hurts, as practice owners. So when you're talking about patients, there's a myriad of different reasons. If you were to ask them, you're going to get all types of reasons, ranging from things like, just got busy and it's out of sight, out of mind. They fell off that cadence, that recurring appointment, and now it's so hard to climb back on that, get back in the saddle and get rescheduled again. Sometimes it's a changing insurance situation where they don't think that you accept the new insurance or something like that. Forgetting appointment. I mean, you're going to hear every possible excuse under the sun. And that's okay, right? That's okay. There's lots of different reasons why. but it's just important to remember that you can get these patients back in. They may say that, but it's important to ask, because then it gives you intel on, okay, how can I reach out to this person? If they're just forgetting appointments, that's a lot easier, right, than someone who said, oh, I just didn't have a great experience with my hygienist. I just didn't have a great experience with the front desk, or maybe even the doctor didn't spend that much time. I felt ignored or whatever. Those are harder patients to reconvert, right? They've already had a negative experience. But I will say too that those, when you do convert them, often become some of your biggest advocates, because they can see that you are going out of your way to make sure that they are taken care of, that you recognize that they had a lackluster experience, that you heard them, and now you're actually proactively doing something about it. You're not saying, oh, I'm so sorry, that's, and just forgetting about it, but you're taking action so that you can win them back over. And a lot of people reciprocate really, really well with that. So that, again, there's still opportunity for those ones. But the real cost with these patients that are inactive isn't not really just lost revenue. And that is a big part, though. I mean, if you were to look at that and see, okay, well, these, 25% of my patient base, they're not coming in, even if those were just strictly hygiene appointments, what would that end up being financially for my practice? But you're also losing the trust. You're also losing the potential referrals that these patients can bring, and any additional future services, additional treatment that they are, of course, going to have. I mean, not everyone, of course, but there's going to be a lot of opportunity for that, a lot of additional treatment, especially for those that haven't come in for 18, 24, sometimes 36 months. So huge opportunity there. One stat I did find, sorry, I've got a lot of different statistics today. I just found this fascinating as I was getting into this, but the average practice retains only about 41% of new patients, meaning many never come back after that first visit. If you're looking at that, there are 6 out of 10 that may not come back, right? So it's important to look at that and see, how can I, not only does that represent an opportunity to re-engineer that experience to ensure that you're capturing more of those patients, to make sure that they feel welcome in the practice, that they're heard, that you are taking the time necessary to make them feel comfortable, to address any issues they have, answer any questions that might come up. But also it's that opportunity to see, oh man, here's what I'm doing from a production standpoint. And if I'm only retaining, 41% of these new patients, what could I be? Where would I be if I were to retain 60% or 70 or 80% of those new patients? So what's cool is that you're not necessarily having to go out and get more new patients. Yes, we all typically want new patients, but if you're just converting these, at a higher clip, then you're gonna be more full, right? I mean, you're not spending any additional dollars on advertising. Your ability to convert just improves. And you're also going to see more referrals in the end too, which also increases new patient flow. So there are so many benefits, and that's why I get pretty excited when we're talking about reactivation. Okay. So, it's pretty easy to do nowadays. Almost every single practice management software, all the ones that I've come across or work with, they have the ability to identify patients who haven't scheduled in 6 to 18 months. Again, there's lots of tools out there too that kind of do this for you to help you locate these low-hanging fruit. But you want to look at these people and on a regular basis. You should have something in place that goes out to help them again feel that that you know who they are, all right? That they're not just, oh, well, they don't care about me. They didn't even contact me. They don't care if I show, but that you do actually care and that you are here for them, And so there's ways to do that. I typically recommend starting small, let's just reach out to 50 inactive patients. And oftentimes when you do that, you can see results of 10, 15 hygiene appointments, which is awesome. I mean, again, you take that and you add that. If you were to add 10 to 15 additional appointments from any type of paid marketing that you're doing, you would be thrilled, right? Because it's challenging to increase your new patients from paid marketing efforts, because again, going back to what we talked about before, the trust just isn't there yet. You're talking to cold traffic, people that aren't as familiar with your brand or have never even heard about you, and they're trying to figure out if you're really a good fit for them. So, if you're looking at 10 new appointments just from a list of about 50 inactive patients, that's awesome. That is tremendous right there. So that's what I would recommend is you just use your practice management software. Let's get a list. And then once you have that list, let's just start small. Let's start with 25. Let's start with 50 inactive patients. And then we're going to send out some messaging to them and follow up and make sure that they know that we're here. We know that we can get them in and see them, take care of them on a time that works for them, right? So then we're talking about, okay, now we've got that list. We've identified the 50 that we're going to start with. What does that outreach look like? And frankly, there are a lot of different opportunities. You can do it via text message. You can do it via email. You can do it via phone, and postcards are still very viable when you're talking about recall and reactivation. But I would recommend you kind of vary your approach, because sometimes if you do the same thing over and over again, it gets dull. People, not that they resent it, but they just they tune it out, and so it's nice to vary your approach. So sometimes it can be an email campaign. Sometimes it can be a text message. Text, I always put an asterisk by, just because you want to be very, very intentional about how you use text messaging, because it gets tremendous open rates, but it also can feel very invasive. You don't want to abuse that. Otherwise people can get upset, but I found that when you do it in the right manner and your tone is, friendly, you're focused on the benefits and for them, and sometimes you inject a little bit of humor, and all of a sudden it's dare I say exciting, just because they're getting something that it's novel is probably a better word for it, because they're getting something that they've probably seen a lot before, but they've just tuned out because they are, they have those templates before, all these practice management softwares have these built-in templates, and they're pretty vanilla, and so if you can vary that and personalize it and add some personality to it, then you are going to see a better response. Okay. So those are a few things to look at. So you can start with, again, be intentional when you use text messaging. Don't abuse it. But it is very effective. Email, I'd start with text and email, because it's much easier to get through, than picking up the phone and calling, and it doesn't cost as much as postcards. But if you want to, you can combine all four, and vary those throughout the year. Okay. So then you're starting to reach out. Now what on earth do you say when you start to reach out to an inactive patient? Well, there's a lot of different things that you can do, and I like to start, if you've never done this before, I like to give them a good reason why. I kind of think of them as people that, again, have just gotten out of the habit. And so that they want to come back. They recognize first that the importance of keeping their teeth clean, of getting regularly checked by a professional. They know how important it is to uncover any problems up front, but they just haven't been doing it, right? So just kind of picture them as an ideal client that just hasn't come in for they're just too busy to do this. And so I like to give them a good reason why to come in right now. So, and that can be a simple incentive, it could be something simple like, in Easter, we did this for one of our clients, and I'll read you the script. Hey, Jessica, it's Dr. Smith from Gleam Dental. Spring is here. Come in for cleaning and receive a special gift. $20 Trader Joe's gift card and Cadbury mini eggs. Just say yes and we'll take care of the rest. And that's it. And we varied it. We did some phone or some text messaging, and we did some emails, and yeah, we got, I think it was a smaller list. I want to say it was about 50, and we got about 12 new 12 hygiene appointments from that. And it was just, again, an easy reason why you're not pressuring them. You're not making them feel guilty. Hey, we haven't seen you in 14 months. What on earth are you doing, you idiot? I mean, like, not that any of you would say that, but I think sometimes it can come across like a little condescending if we're saying, well, it's been 21 months since you've come in for a cleaning. Some people can read that the wrong way. So give them a good reason why. You can make it playful, or you can make it inject a little bit of humor, and tools like ChatGPT are great for this. You can say, hey, come up with 15 different ways to encourage a patient to come back in for a cleaning that hasn't been in for, 24 months or 12 months. And then you can customize it from there, and that'll give you a good place to get started. But then you can, again, always tweak it to make sure that it's consistent with your brand and your tone, so that they have a good experience. Then from there, it's just a matter of execution, right? It's a matter of making sure that you have someone that's in charge of that every month. And so you want to assign a team member to own reactivation each month. And so their job essentially will be to pull that list and identify, okay, who needs to be contacted about this? And then how are we going to do it this month? So they can identify, is it text message? If it's that maybe what you do, it's not per month, is one of the things that we do is just say, okay, so once they go on the list, the first message goes out, it is a text message, and then the next message could be a follow-up text, and then the third one's an email, fourth one's an email, and you just kind of vary it like that. And so whenever someone gets onto the list, then it starts back at step one, which in our case, text message. Okay. So just have a really simple process, have the script written out, and then just assign a team member to own that reactivation each month. And then you'll follow up each month. Just have them give you a report on, okay, did all these go out? Yes. All of them went out on this date. How many responses did we get? How many did not respond? And just so you can kind of track a little bit on a very basic level. You don't need to go into too much depth, but just see how many are responding, and then you'll be able to see over time which messaging typically resonates the best with your patient base, and you can adjust things to your process, and you can start with those. I'd start with your best messaging, and then you can change that as you go forward. Okay. So last thing I want to do before we summarize this podcast, this episode, it's been a shorter one, which is nice, but what happens when you win them back? I kind of want to finish painting the picture of why we're doing this, just because it's so important to see that these are patients, again, that you've already invested time, money, and effort to acquire. They already have a relationship with you. And once they come back, oftentimes many of them become very outspoken about your practice and become ambassadors to other people and drive other people to your practice. In addition to that, you're going to see production goes up, right? They're going to start with hygiene, and a good percentage of them will have additional treatment that's needed. Some will do it, some will not, but you'll see that production come in as an additional benefit from these patients that were once inactive. What's cool about all of this too is that as you're doing this, it reduces the pressure on all of your paid ads and your new patient acquisition costs and budget. So as you're able to reactivate these patients, you're going to see better. Yeah, you're just not banking as much on your paid ads to generate new patients. It's a diversification strategy essentially, where you have the ability to keep these patients engaged. They remain loyal to your practice for longer. Your acquisition cost goes down because these patients have remained patients and active for longer. You're not having to go out and spend more to acquire new patients just to fill your schedule. So there are so many additional benefits to this if you're able to see that and really capture the vision, essentially. So to finish, let's just here's 3 steps that you can do right now. So I would pull your inactive patient list from your PMS and start 6 to 18 months overdue, or you can, whatever time frame you want to start. If you want to start at 12 months, great. Go 12 months plus, overdue, and then craft a message and choose your channels. So what's our message going to be? Again, I would recommend starting with a little bit of an incentive just to get it kick-started, just to reach out, because I find that one's worked better for us and our clients. So that's what I'd recommend doing. Doesn't have to be much, really. You do not have to spend a whole lot on this. It could even be like a gag gift or something funny, or a surprise gift or something, just to see, because curiosity also works on us really well. But craft your message, choose your channel, and then assign, or, if a team member really is excited about it, then delegate this to a team member to do this on a regular basis, to do this every month, and to return and report. Okay. Don't let it fall off. And I know that as you continue to reach out to them, and especially if you're looking at what's happening, you're modifying maybe some of your messaging based on the feedback that you're receiving, it's going to get better and better and better. And you are going to see some of those patients that you haven't seen in a long time, and they will be thrilled to see you. They will be so pumped to see you, because they're going to feel better about their mouth and their teeth and their oral hygiene, because they know that you can take care of them. They know that they'll know that they've done what they know they need to do, which is come in and get checked, and it's already going to make them more confident, right? So I encourage you to look at this, do this as a team, and you're going to see some great results from it. That is it for today, my friends. If you have any questions, or if you have any topics that you would like me to address, I am all ears. Just email me, or email Maria at markthackeray.com, and she'll get that over to me. And if you haven't yet, I would love to get a review. This helps. This is not a massive podcast by any means, but it is something that I do enjoy doing. And it's great to get feedback if you're enjoying the show. And so please rate us on, it could be Apple Podcasts, it could be Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. There's usually a way to rate us, and that would be tremendously helpful. And until next time, my friends, have a great week.